Why is it? It's on? It's on? It's on, right? Yeah. Okay, Rabbi Say. So we have a very big day, Rabbi Say, because we got to get to Atmana. You see, Rabbi Yitzchak put out my Mekaymis and Atmana. So there's no games, Rabbi Say. We have 7 working days. The 7 working days. If not, I'm gonna have to cancel Tisha B'Av. So today is the Mitzvah Hashem, the last day of Chazara. And then we have to start Atmana. You guys aren't getting any younger, certainly not better looking. And we have to really move. The 2 interesting shilas before we get into this real nitty gritty of today we're getting into all the shilas. A lot of the stuff we spoke about, but just to be masak and blechs and hot plates and on top of cholent pots. This is where the gold is, everybody side. This is where the gold is. This is what it is. This is where Hilchas Shabbos is. This is where all the gewaldigkeit, the geschmackkeit of Hilchas Shabbos is. One shaila is that there's something called I think it's called a simmer. A simmer. It has like a handle and it's like a round piece of metal and you put it under a pot. Am I saying it right? It's called a simmer. What? It's holes in it. Yeah. What's it called? No, a sieve. No. A sieve is where you put the noodles in, and that's don't cause trouble. I'll throw you out if you cause trouble. I'll throw you out. But it's flat, and you put it under the fire. What are you causing trouble? And you put it under the pot. Does anybody know what I'm talking about or no? Us? They sell them. Rabbi Cooper says they sell them. And Meisharim, thank you, Rabbi Cooper. They sell everything. Do the guys watching TV know what I'm talking about? Muncie, they have them still? Okay, they have them. Very good. Okay. Is a bayside. So today I saw one in my house. I asked my wife, what's this? What's this? She says, how do you think I keep your lunch warm? Right? When it's only 89,000 degrees outside. How do you think I keep your lunch warm? I said, really? What is this thing? With this thing, you keep the lunch warm. In other words, what's the shot? I asked her, why can't you just put it the fire to the lowest, right? Like I don't use it anymore because in my electric oven, it doesn't really work. I just saw it in the drawer and I was asking her what this thing is. So in the Haim, we used to have a stovetop that had fire on it. Right? And then you would take the fire. So I said, why wouldn't you just turn the fire to lowest? She said, this is even after it's the lowest. Even after the fire is at the lowest. So I asked her, why do you put this thing on? So she said, you put it on so that the food doesn't burn. I said, there's 2 different things you just said. You just said that if this is why girls don't learn Gemara. I said, you just said that the reason why is that it keeps your food hot. And then the other thing you said is that your food shouldn't burn. She said, right, in order to keep your food hot and that it shouldn't burn. Right? Okay. So now this is very important in the lumdis, right? Is it the pshat that they use this thing while they're cooking? Or no, they only use it after they're cooking to make it that the food doesn't burn and they want to keep the food hot. The nafkamin is that let's say you go away for Shabbos and you go to a place and there's no blech and you find this thing. Could you put this thing down? Right? If the lumdis is they use it in the cooking process and they use it that the food shouldn't burn, so then that's normal in the cooking process. That doesn't show you're Mesiach Das. That didn't show me that you're Mesiach Das. Or is it assuming that the food is not Michael Ben Yusai, because once it's Michael Ben Yusai, it's Matranis. Or let's say you want to be Machmir, and you want to have a blech even when it's Michael Ben Yusai, like the Mishabura says it should be Machmir, whatever. But Akapanim, or is it the pshat that no, you put it there after the food is cooked. You want to keep the food warm. So what's the answer? Does anybody know the answer to this question? Does anyone know? What? Nah, but those holes don't bother me. He's asking that has holes in it. We have tiny little holes, and that we saw that would be enough to be considered like it's ketuma all over the place. A couple little holes that won't bother me. I mean, the one I saw certainly didn't bother me. What? So wait, by a show of hands, who uses it to keep the food warm? Who uses it to make sure the food doesn't burn? What? I would think that you use it to make the food that it should that the food shouldn't burn. Excuse me, that the food should stay warm and the mamela shouldn't burn. So that's what you're doing it for. It's a good example of I think it's the biggest blech in the world. What? It's called a simmer. Rabbi Platzker says that I'm right. It's called a simmer.
No, it's called a simmer for a reason.
It's called a simmer. I made that up. That's not right. He's saying Rabbi Kallus calls it a simmer. I call it a simmer, right? I call it a simmer. Shabby still doesn't know what it is. He's still no shach. Right? I was saying, could you please help me? Are you causing trouble just because you missed one day? So that's it. A splatter guard. Right? That's you know what I'm talking about, right? Also, no. Okay. I'm going right there. Right? Okay. What? People use it as a blech. That's it. They use it as a no. I think they could use it as a blech, right? Rabbi Mel, do you know what I'm talking about or not? You know what I'm talking about, and they use it like I'm saying to just don't start with me. Right? Okay, let me get invited. You guys are getting me all agitated, right? Do you guys still hear me? Because I see it's frozen over here. It seems like it's frozen. You guys hear me? I think they hear me. Okay, weiter. Is Rabbi say next? There's a camp that had a shy like this. There's a bacher that went into the what's it called? Into the kitchen, or whatever you call that thing. He went into the kitchen, and in the kitchen, he saw that the way they cook is with blechs. That's the way they cook. The entire, because they have to cook for 300-400 people, especially now that there's no camps in New York, so all the camps are in the place the Poconos. So they have to cook for 300-400 camps, whatever. So now they have you can't just have like one fire and a guy making eggs. Okay? So they have, and Mr. Yeshivas is like this also. They have blechs and blechs and blechs and blechs, like tens of blechs. He told me walk in there, like the whole thing is like one big metal blech. So he said to me, what do they do on Shabbos? I mean, he didn't say to me, he doesn't understand anything, the Bacher, but he said it looked like Shabbos. I'm sorry. Right? Well, what do you do on Shabbos? Right? When they want to keep the food, I asked him, what do they do on Shabbos? It's the most convenient thing. They just take all the food and put it on all the blechs. The blechs are there. It's a ganz your Shabbos. Right? So this is a good example. Whoever's learning now the Mishnah Berurah talks about over here. He brings the Mariel and a whole ganz mice over here. He brings a whole story over here about that there used to be some type of cooking way that was normal to have a piece of metal on the fire. And the Mariel says that even though you have something covering the fire, but you should still put another hecker of sorts or whatever. You should put some other hecker on, because if there's a normal way of cooking, that you're not showing us that you're not in the cooking process. Now, the Maisa, where's it negaya? The only thing it's negaya is if they're going to have cholins that are, under Michael ben Drusai, because once it's Michael ben Drusai, so we're Michael anyways. And I think in the camp, I would say probably that's a ganz possible thing. It's very shaykh that they would have a cholent that they just leave on the fire, and fakert, they probably don't want the bacher meeting it on Friday night and whatever. So Maisa, it'll come out of Merdika Zach. It'll come out if this camp has like 5 blechs and they put the food, which is not Michael ben Drusai before Shabbos, on these blechs, it won't be enough, because the blech is not enough, since that's a normal way of cooking the whole week. So therefore, you have to do some other hecker. What would they do? What other hecker should they do? They should put another blech on it. What? Cover the knobs, you're not going to go over here. But you're just causing trouble. You and your 2 masks over there. You're causing trouble over here. You're causing trouble. You know that covering knobs is going to just get me angry. You know that, right? Derech Agav, they're different yoel. I saw this, the Satmar Rebbe. I was looking at a different tshuva in the Satmar Rebbe, in the Divrei Yoel, in Siman Yud Zayin. He says, there's no effort to lock up the knobs and to call that toch betit. He says, what do you think? You think that the Chachamim from the previous Doiris, they never had this idea? So you're the first person that has the idea. So now it's not just the Marshag, it's also the Satmar, that he also says, no putting a lock on the knobs. No, because I'm getting a lot of pressure lately from people sending me these angry, violent emails. Why am I not being make with toch betit and just to cover the knobs? So the Divrei Yoel Satmar Rebbe says, what are you talking about? How come nobody chap to just cover and lock the knobs? He says, because that's not toch betit. So what are you going to tell me? I know what you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me, okay, but the Maisa, the many Gedolim were Mekel, the Chazanish. No, Rabbi Lieberman, the Chazanish is in Lamed Vav Gimel. He seems to sound like he's Mekel over there, to just lock up the knobs. Just lock up the knobs. And then that's called Toch Betit, and it's a new etter. Just lock up the knobs. So first of all, okay. Yeah. So first of all, Rabbi Levin says, I don't have a lock. Well, you know that interesting guy who knows how to screw nails into the crock pot, and he's making a lock and whatever. We don't have that. So he says, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll just put a piece of tape on the knob, right? And the tape is like a lock, right? So in the Chedushay Basra, that's the Rav Scheinberg Zeichet Tzadik Levracha, over there, I saw this in Reish Nun Zayin Mem Gimel. He brings down, no way. Even if we'll be makel on a lock, which you know that Kallus is not so into, because you're smarter than the Dairis HaKodim, and that nobody chapped this idea. The Divrei Yoel says, and the Marshag says. But even if you'll say that, but that's only a lock. It's like a whole stick, a lock, a lock, but a piece of tape, which is a simple piece of tape. So he's not accepting that. But I know what you're going to say. You can say, yeah, but the Maisa, the Aruch Shabbos and the others, they bring down that tape and all these things work. And come on, you have to be a little bit more understanding. You have to be a bit more understanding. Obviously, we're only talking about Shiur. We're not talking about chazara, because chazara won't work. Everyone agrees tach b'tit doesn't work for chazara. The old concept of chazara is a mechzik and mavashal over here. It's not going to help. It'll only help us maybe that it won't stoke, but it's a place that's normal to cook, so that won't help. Okay, you see in all the achrayim that nobody dreamed of this. Rav Moshe never dreamed of this. He says covering the knobs is not going to help. He never even dreamed of such a tzad, Rav Moshe. So okay, but you still say, but Lamaisa, the Aruch Shabbos is not like that, right? Not like Rav Moshe, and not like Rav Scheinberg, and not like the Satmar Rebbe, and not like the Marshak. Okay. So the Maisa, it's very interesting. They bring down that Rav Elyashiv was maybe Mako on this tape covering business. The only thing is that in the Shvus Yitzchak, in the 122nd page, he brings down that Rav Elyashiv said, you know what Tach B'tit is? Tach B'tit means that you have to put cement on the oven door, whatever, the oven door. He said, it's not enough to just cover the stokers. It's not enough to just cover. Tach B'tit was the entire pot, and its gechalim and everything was behind the locked door. So if you want to take tape and tape up all of the why are you laughing? Right? You want to tape up all of the button lock, the kaftoria, what do you call them, the knobs and whatever. And then you want to take tape and put it all over the cholent, all around, and do that. So then there's what to talk about. But until you do that, so then that's not going to go. So therefore, it's over, Rabbi say. No one should ever mention over here, Tach B'tit. Tach B'tit is over. The Pri Megadim in Reish and Tes, in Sivkot, in Gimel. I'm answering an angry email that I got today, if you noticed, right? Reish and Tes, Sivkot, in Gimel, the Pri Megadim, he brings down over there that if you take like shmatas and you stuff up the door of the oven and you mamish can't open it, he says that's not Tach B'tit. Tach B'tit is cement, daf tit. We need to, so now, therefore, Tachlis L'maisa. Can I take the piece of tape and just cover the kaftar and the knobs and everything? A resounding no. This is not Tach B'tit. This is not Tach B'tit according to Rav Elyashiv. This is not Tach B'tit according to Rav Moshe. This is not Tach B'tit according to Satmar Rebbe. This is not Tach B'tit according to the Marshag. This is not Tach B'tit, except to the Aruch Shabbos. Okay? So therefore, this is not Tach B'tit. And if you do it, you're over on Xeris Chazal. Unless the food is already Michael Ben Drusai, and then you stop wasting time. Right? Meaning, because Mamanashach, if you hold Michael Ben Drusai is enough, then Michael Ben Drusai is enough. Elamai, you want to get the Chumrah, but you're not getting the Chumrah, so therefore there's no more. Tach B'tit is over, and I am no longer Mechayev Al Pi my contract to discuss Tach B'tit. But Al Kapanim, how do we get into that? You did it. What? So we need a hacker. So maybe I'll take a hacker. That's interesting, huh? I want to say maybe I'll take a hacker. Meaning, it's interesting. He wants to say that the Mariel only required like a hacker. Yeah, but Mariel required a hacker. He wanted that type of a hacker. Maybe you need that type of a hacker. Who knows? It does say hacker though. I don't know. Maybe it's interesting. You hear what he's saying? He's saying the Mariel said that when you already have a covered fire, but it's the normal way you cook, which is this case in camp. So the Mariel's lashon was Mishabur say. He says like all you need is a hacker. What's his lashon? Read me his lashon, Kindlech. What's it say? He says you still need a hacker or something like that on the Mazeva. Where is it? My entire neshama? 81. As he cut and pay off. So Rabbi Khan says, he says, you know what? It's not a xeris akosiv. You see over here, he just needs like an epis a hacker. What? But he wants you to cover that. It's not sure. Okay, it's interesting, Shaila. Let me think about it. I knew the guys would like the Shaila. I knew the Talmid Chacham would like the Shaila. So that's okay. What? Excuse me, what? It's not Michael Ben Drusai? You know me, I have a lot up my sleeve. It's got to be a third. You got to be a going to answer this challenge, right? It's not a third, and it won't get a third by Shkia and whatever. Massive, whatever. Yeah? What? He's right. It's only Mariel. Meikar din, we are Meikam. He's right. Yeah, I'm saying, but the Mishabura is clearly, at least not by this child, the Mishabura is clearly mashma that in this case over here, when it's the, what? That this thing, might say that we had back then. Maybe if it's a normal way to cook, everyone would agree you need something more. But then I don't know if I'll be samech on just a hacker. Then I mamish need maybe a proper blech or something. Let me think about it. It's definitely an interesting shiloh. So those are two shilohs, Rabbi said. The simmer, it's a simmer. I made it up the word, or it's a real word. The simmer. You know what I'm talking about? The simmer and the camp that has the blechs all over the place, as that the way they usually cook. So what would you do during the week? What would you do? Okay, that's number one. Number two is, and it's called a diffuser. Thank you. It's called the diffuser, right? So that helped. So it says like this. One more thing. I saw that Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in the 495th page in Sefer Me'orat Shabbos. So he asked the question. He said, can I take a potato kugel? They asked Rav Shlomo Zalman, we know that you're allowed to take a pot and put it on top of another pot. That's what we have to talk about now. You're allowed to take a pot straight out of the fridge and put it on top of another pot, assuming you don't have bishul issues. You're allowed to take schnitzel, challah, whatever, and take it and put it on top of a challah pot. That's what we spoke about yesterday. So yeah, they asked Rav Shlomo Zalman, could you take a potato kugel, whatever, let's say schnitzel, whatever, could you take it wrapped in its silver foil and put it into the pot? Could you put it into the pot? I don't mean like dunking it in a shayla vatmana, which we'll learn about the mitzvah Shem hopefully today. But I mean, Pasha just, instead of putting it on the lid, right? Maliv had put it on the lid, Maliv put it in the pot, and, it's like submerged somewhat, but it's like half in, half that. It's also pretty weird. What? No, Kishka was different. This Kishka was Pashit that he was actually putting it in mamish. He put it into the challah mamish. Here, he's just putting it on top. What's the difference basically, do you have to put it on the lid, right? Or can I put it in the pot? In the pot, but like on the top of the pot, whatever, there, it was mamish dunked in the challah, whatever, right? So Rav Shlomo Zalman says, nearly that it's probably mutter, because I guess he means because it's also pretty weird. And he means like a pot in a pot. I'm using the example of potato kugel that's wrapped in silver foil, and you just leave it on top of the, you open up the challah pot and just put it there and use it as a lid, okay? That type of idea. So he says nearly it should be mutter, but I'm not sure. He writes after, but after it's asr. That's what he writes. Well, what would you say? What would you say? Interesting child, also an interesting child. Also not so clear, right? So let's see what we need to lump this. What? Oh, so Fidel Chazon Ish, I still don't know, because who knows? Maybe the pshat is that this is all in the pot. Maybe it's all the pot, right? Maybe it's not Mesiachis to the food is what's heating it up. I don't know. So I'm not sure. So you know who else isn't sure? Rav Shlomo Zalman. So I'm in good company. So don't do it. Okay, good. Now like this. So Rabbi Cooper, when I walked in today, he asked me, yesterday we said over a machlokes how to answer up the great stira between Siv Gimel and Siv Hey. Okay, and this is a big Yisaitis today, everybody says. So listen closely. We saw that there's a big machlokes how to answer up Siv Gimel Siv Hey. What's the pshat? Siv Gimel says that when you take a schnitzel out of the fridge or whatever, so it says you can't just take schnitzel out of the fridge and put it onto a pot. You can't. Siv Hey says you could. What's the answer? The answer is no shaykhs. Siv Hey has food, and Siv Gimel does not have food. So when it has food, I could take it straight out of the fridge, assuming there's no bishul issues. And that's the case. I could do nesina lechatchila. I could take it straight out of the fridge and put it onto the challah pot. Okay, what we keep on talking about. Mashen Kein Siv Gimel is there. You need t'nai chazara. When you're not putting it onto a pot, a food, and you're just putting it onto a piece of metal, which is fire, metal, food, then you need t'nai chazara, because all that is a covered flame. What's the lumdis? What's the sibas hamatir? So we saw two mahalchim. There's the mahalch, I'll call it the chzainish, and the mahalch of the mishabura. The mahalch of the chzainish is that if you have food blocking, then the food is what's making it hot. Then we're not considering it that the fire is what makes it hot. It's that you're getting heated up from the food. If you're getting heated up from the food, so then that is allowed nesin l'chatchila, and that's considered that the food is heating you up, not the fire. Okay. Mashenkein says Mashenkein in the case of where there's a piece of metal in between blocking you in the fire. So then that's the fire. A piece of metal doesn't block the fire. That's the fire, and the metal becomes one thing, and that's what's heating you up. And therefore you need t'nai chazar. That's the shita chazanish. Mishabur says not like that. Mishabur says if the only function of the metal is to block the fire, is to seisim the fire and to maybe soften up the fire and to make the fire not as hot. So says the Mishabura, then we consider it that this is all being mishamish to fire. The metal's being mishamish to fire. And this is your kira. This has now become your kira. Right? But Mashen came when you have a pot on the fire. So now the pot doesn't become one with the fire. So then you're mufsik from the fire. That's the side of the Mishabura. You're mufsik from the fire. And the food is now not going on to the fire. The food is going on to something else. Mashen came there. If you're going on to something where it's a piece of metal just blocking the fire, so then the food is going straight onto the fire. That just mishamish the fire. That's Bachas Yosef, the Vart in the Mishabura. So what's an nafkamina? So yesterday I said an nafkamina in the Mishabura, the chumrah. I said that if they have this blech, they call the kedera blech, where you take a piece of metal and then water in between and then metal on top, and they sell it like this. Erev Shabbos, you fill her up with water, and then afterward, you put it on the fire. And now, Shabbos day, you can put on a Kallus straight onto the blech. You can put schnitzel straight onto the blech. Previously cooked, everything is fine. It's covered, and it's also, there's food in between. So he said, Lefi the Chazon Ish, that's good, because there's food in between. Mashen Kain, Lefi the Mishabura, Lefi the Mishabura, it's not going to be good. Because according to Mishabura, the word is not, is there food in between? According to Mishabura, is the kira being mishamish, is this piece of metal being mishamish to fire? The answer is yes, of course, a resounding yes. This piece of metal is certainly being mishamish to fire. It's enabling me to get my food on Shabbos. It's all considered nisbatel to the fire. And therefore, that's not considered like, I'm a separate entity. I'm mufsik from the fire. This becomes your fire now. That's l'chayra. The pashtus, they say Rav Yashiv, this is a ma'aseh like I think 8 years ago or 10 years, something like that. They say that they asked Rav Yashiv about this kedera blech, and Rav Yashiv said it's no good. I imagine this was the cheshbon. So now Rabbi Cooper asked me, so does the Mishabura ever come out of kula? Is he ever kula and the Chazon Ish ever come out of chumrah? So now I'll tell you a different shayla. Now, by the way, Lefi the mahalach we're saying right now, the mahalach is that both these things are weird. Cooking on a pot is a weird thing. Cooking on a piece of metal is a weird thing, except in that camp, which we just spoke about. But cooking in general on a metal is a weird thing. What? I'm talking right now about blech. I'm sorry. If I said hot plate, I meant blech. Okay, so that they told you. Griddle, but it's not. It's a piece of metal. Yeah. So okay, it could be. It could be, and that's like in the camp that I'm telling you they use just a piece of metal. But it's I think it's weird enough when you have to come on to like the restaurant. It means that in normal regular cooking, it's not the norm. But Vinashvi, we're anyways only going to be makel on with Tanaya Chazara because safe it's a covered flame. Okay, in a restaurant, in a catering matzav, you have to dan. What do they do in a catering matzav? If that's how they cook always, and they have metal plates and things like that. So then what are they going to do, right? Because that's this thing. That's his thing. The same shot as the camp. What?
Same thing as a blech when you do it. This is like built like this. You just throw in a piece of metal on top of fire. It's not the same thing as these griddles which are built. They're built in metal plate like directly.
And do you see the fire? You don't see the fire. You don't see the fire. So you want to say it's like an oven. You want to say it's like an oven that the fire is inside that metal piece, like an oven also, you don't see the fire. Maybe. Okay. Yeah, I understand. He's saying it's not just like a yeshiva shematzav in a camp where they have a fire and a blech on top of it, and that's how they cook. Okay, maybe, and therefore you can put a blech. He's saying on that in the what's it called in the catering calls they'll put a blech. Okay, but tachlis abaysai. I think so. That's what I think. I never saw it, but I think so. Yeah. Could what? You want to say, Shalom Yankiv says, maybe even according to the Chazon Ish, you won't matter a kedera blech. Right? Maybe even according to the Chazon Ish, because the Chazon Ish will say that's not food. You're not getting heated from the food. But yeah, I could have heard, according to Chazon Ish, it's not like, it's more xeris hakasiv dik. I could hear. I told you there would have been an eitzah if they would have made like an urn in the shape of a blech. Some massive urn, right? And would have a spout, and the water would come out. So then, la Yehudim, that'd be good according to everybody. Then for sure, there's water in between, and for sure you can't say it's just being mishamish to fire, right? It's certainly also there for the water, and that would be a great eitzah. I guess there's a reason they didn't make it. Also it's going to always be fleshik of water, right? It's mamish fleshik of water. So. Okay, now by say, is I say, what about this case? Can I take a pan? An upside down pan, I'll call it upside down because that's what people do. Can I take an upside down bekel, like sometimes they use disposable chad pami or a pan or whatever. Can I take it and put her on a blech, which is on the fire? So you all know this eitzah. Who does this? Who takes an upside down pan and puts it on I'm not in a hot plate yet. We'll talk about her in a moment. But on a blech, you take a pan and you put it upside down, you put it on the blech, and then you put the challah on top of her. Who does that? Anybody do it? A lot of people do it. So Rav Vosner did it. Rav Vosner in Tzadi Aleph in Shevet HaLevi, Rav Vosner says that you're allowed to do it. Says Rav Vosner, what's the reason why? So Rav Vosner says, Mamish Islam, Rav Vosner, what's the pshat in the Chilik Tvishin Gimel and Hey? So Rav Osner says the chiluk is the kira being mishamish, is the metal, the piece of metal, the pot being mishamish the kira, and it's coming to just lessen the fire of the kira. It's coming to like make a simmer on the kira. So then it's all bottle to the fire. And then you're putting your food on the fire, and that you're not allowed to do without t'nai chazar. With t'nai chazar, you're allowed to, because saif, it's a covered fire. But you're not allowed to do that unless you have the t'nai chazar. Says the Rav Osner says, but Mashen Kain Sifhei, what's the lumdus of Sifhei? Sifhei is that I'm mufsuk and muvdul from the fire. Those are the words of Rav Osner. I'm mufsuk from the fire. I'm not bottled to the fire. No, says Rav Osner. If I already have a blech, I have a blech already. So then that which is limiting the fire already you have. That's already the being mishamish the fire. Now you take another pan or pot, whatever, and you put that upside down on the kiro. And I'm going to say that's being mishamish the fire. That's already too vite. That's already vite. It's already muvdol. It's already mufresh. It's already separate from the fire. And no longer could you say the words. What were the words in the Mishnah Berurah? Rak oimid listoi makira. The whole word is when you have one pan or one pot or something or one piece of metal on the fire. There it's oimid rak listoi makira, to go and lessen the fire. But here you already have a piece of metal on the blech. So now this is like a separate thing, He says, if this is not going to work, if you're like two blechs, big deal, But over here you have like, already it's being sliced in the kira. And now you take another pan and you put it there and you put the food on that. That he says, that's already too fight. That's mutar, the chatchila, and that he says is the same thing as sifhei. Okay, it makes sense. The way we learned in the Mishnah Berurah, it makes sense. Lefi the Chazon Ish, is this true? According to the Chazon Ish, this is not true, right? This is an incorrect, it's a false statement. According to the Chazon Ish, the only way I could be making put 25 pieces of metal in between. But according to the Chazon Ish, Rabbi Dre says no games here. According to the Chazon Ish, is this good? No good. According to the Chazon Ish, you have to have food in between. Unless you plan on eating the metal pan, but you have to have food in between. According to the Chazon Ish, the only way it works is that if I could say there's the fire, and you see the Chazon Ish, everybody said when it came to metal, he wasn't impressed. That's why he wasn't impressed with our blech in the first place. He wasn't impressed. He wants to have food in between. If you have food in between, then it's getting heated from the food. If you have metal in between, I don't care if you have 5 pieces of metal. So therefore, according to the Chazon Ish, this is no good. We that don't hold to the Kedera blech, so we hold of the Seitza. Right? It works out good. We don't hold to the Kedera blech, and we'll hold of the Seitza. It's very good. Okay, that's what works out very nicely. And Lemaisa, Rav Shlomo Zalman in the Shmir Shabbos in the 126th Ara, Hidaka brings down that you could be makel like this. You could be makel like this Eitzah. And Erev Shabbos, you could take, on Shabbos, you could take food out of challah, whatever, from the fridge and whatever, and you could put it. Now, I saw Taka that the Art Scroll book, he brings down that he was against this. Interesting, I don't know. He was against this. He says you shouldn't do this. Interesting. Not sure why. It's I guess he's going with the cheshbon of the Chazon Ish. I don't know, but the Mishnah Berurah's cheshbon is not like this. Mishnah Berurah seems to say that the lumdus is, are you being soisim the kira? So this is that kan. Now, Derech Agav, if liba is naikva, if you're feeling a little nervous, like to be makel on this, I don't think you really have to be nervous to be makel. You know why? Because one of the things that we're putting on top of a pan, anyways, what are we putting on a pan, anyways? We're putting challah. We're putting schnitzel, we're putting potato cook. Like, what are the things we're putting on anyways, right? We're usually putting on baked items. That's what we're doing anyways. All the items that we're putting on are usually baked because otherwise it's going to be a problem of bishul because it's wet and whatever. So then anyways, you have the Noid Yehuda that brings the Ran that he wants to say that when you're dealing with baked items, so then anyways, you're allowed to do nesilin chatchila on baked items. We don't do that. But if I say vait, maybe that's the pshat taka, like the Noid Yehuda. And second of all, maybe taka Rav Osner is correct, and the Mishnah Berurah seems to learn Rav Osner is correct. So therefore, you could sleep easy. And let's say you want to be a super machmir, and you don't want to listen to what I just said, which I don't know why. But let's say you want to be a super machmir, right? So then you know what? I'll give you another suggestion. Take the pan, right, and don't put it directly over the fire. Put it. Let's say this is the fire. Right over where my hand is. Now, put it over here. The blech is the whole blech over here. Take the pan and put it over here. Here's the fire. Here's the pan. So what's that? That's not even over the fire anymore. That might have a new status in halacha of a smicha. Boys can talk about this. You're not on the fire itself. Now, there's a big shaila in halacha of nesina lechatchila is mutter on smicha. We got a machmir, but it's another shaila. It's like another shaila. It's like you put this all together. If you want to be a super machmir, you take the pan, you turn it upside down, you put it next to the fire on the blech, and then you're putting a baked product on, and that's mutter l'chatchila. To be machmir on that is almost ludicrous. That's already almost that's ludicrous. I'm saying more than that you can't be machmir. Is that crystal clear before I go back? Boss? I'm not scared of you. I believe I'm not scared of you or any of your Gateshead people. This much already is enough for Kallus. A little bit, don't cause trouble. Boss? I'm not afraid of you. He says sometimes you take an upside down pan, and when you put the challah on, the challah is a heavy challah, a small pan, and it starts going down. I say as long as there's a little space in between. Because it's no longer the lumdus is that is it just there? It's a separate thing. It's an under chefta. The truth is, as long as there's a little space in between. Come again? What do you mean a lid? No, just a piece of metal. Just like another layer. That doesn't impress me because that's just a what? No, because you have a little space. You have a little space. No, he has a little space. When he squashes it, he's not as big as you. He's like a little guy. When he squashes it, it has like a little space. No, but you can't have no space at all because then you just have another layer of silver foil. That's already probably meshed. That's a little higher. Is that crystal clear? I'm saying because if it's not upside down, so then you just have two layers of metal. To have two layers of metal, I don't hear it so well. Okay, maybe somebody will say you could do that. I don't know. I don't hear so well. But that's not what Rav Vosner said. I'm only saying what Rav Vosner said. No, I don't think so. Is it closer? It's clear. No, I mean, it's a double pasha. Now, by saying that's number one. Now, number two is what about? Okay, yeah, no. Let's go weiter a minute, and then we'll discuss this. Now, okay, like this. What if like this? What if, you have to remember, by saying, anyways, not a Mexican mavashal. It's not a normal way of cooking. Elamai, we saw Mexi is not enough. It's not enough. It has to be not a Mexi and mufsuk. Okay, that's what you're seeing here in the Mishabur. It's got to be not Mexi. Can't be a normal way of cooking. And it also has to be that there's some type of a hefsik. It's not just being seisim the kira. I'll just give you an example. Let's talk about a hot plate for a moment. We spoke a lot about hot plates, right? So let's speak about a hot plate. Can I take something out of the fridge and put it onto a hot plate? Assuming there's no bishul issue. Challah, schnitzel, whatever. Okay, so if the Noid Behuda, you could. We don't hold to the Noid Behuda. The Mishabur doesn't like that teretz, and we don't hold the Noid Behuda, and you can't. Let's see. The fear of Avaja. So we said Ravaja in Chelik Beis and Simon Memhei and Chavadas. He says you could take something straight out and put it on. Okay, that's a big chiddush. It's part of the art scroll book. He says you could take something straight out. That's why I was looking there today. Somebody told me, he says you can take something straight out of the challah, straight out of the fridge, and the schnitzel straight out of the fridge. Right? Rabbi Silverman, you better be listening. This is from Lakewood. He wrote the sefer. So that's mistama what they do in Lakewood. I hope you're listening. You can take the challah and the baked items straight out of the fridge and straight onto a hot plate. How could that be? He says because it's not the derech levashel. It's not the derech levashel. People don't cook on a hot plate, and it doesn't have two dials, so we don't have shami chata. And he says, what's his makor of Moshe? Remember, because when Moshe had the tshuva. Tell you that we said this is such a difficult for Moshe. Moshe said because Efshel is bashel sham. So I don't know to come from that Moshe and the other Talmidim where Moshe said that's not what Moshe meant. I don't know. I agree that a hot plate is definitely a weird way of cooking. The only thing I'll be moisef is that okay. Most of the achreinim they don't accept this. They don't accept it. The Shmir Shabbos in Aleph Lamed he brings. We spoke about this. Rosh Hashanah said no way, only chazara. Even though it's not a normal thing to cook on a hot plate. But first of all, it's interesting. Number one is that I remember I gave shiur in my shul about this Indian years ago. I used to give a Thursday night shiur on Hilchot Shabbos, and there's a nephew there. We've been seeing Abishal. He's now in the Olam Emes. But I remember when I spoke about this, I said people don't really cook on a hot plate, and therefore it's a shiloh because maybe it's not Mexican mavashal. Like if I want to take a challah and put it on a radiator, Rav Moshe said it's mutter. Why? Ice boiling hot on the radiator, but it's not normal to cook. So, so I was saying that studying why to put things straight onto a hot plate or a mutter. Number one, you have the rod. Okay. Number two, it's talking not normal to cook there. And there's no shami chata. So maybe it's like a radiator. Maybe it's just to keep things warm. So he piped up this great guy. He's a big guy. He's in the Olam Emes now, but he's a big guy. He said, it's not true. The Sephardim cook on hot plates. I didn't know what he's talking about. What does he mean? Does Sephardim cook on hot plates? What does it mean? Anybody? We don't even have Svardim here. We have to get Svardim in the Kallus. Right? What does it mean here? Chacham Victor. Rabbi Danziger, you're a Svardi. What does it mean that the Svardim cook on hot plates? What does it mean? So I went to ask his wife today. She's almana. I thought I'd give her chizik anyway. And I asked his wife, I said, what does it mean? Your husband, all of a sudden, he told me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that Svardim cook on hot plates. What does it mean? She says to me, yeah, every Friday night she cooks on a hot plate. That's how she makes the chamin. Right? So we cook on hot plates. That's what it means. So they cook on hot plates. Is it so fair to say, we don't cook on Elma, you're going to say, but I don't. I don't know if it's totally in Europe, but Lieberman, the world is not just Gateshead, okay? I know that they were Kaveh the clock, Greenwich, Gateshead village over there. The whole world is bottled to the longitude and latitude and everything. I don't know if you're the whole world, okay? I don't know. Rabbi Zinger, do you know if your neighbors use hot plates? Where do you live, son? Right? You know what's going on over there? You know if your Sephardi neighbors, if they cook on hot plates? What do you think? The whole world, right? The Rabbi said in Eretz Yisrael, they might even have a roy of the Sephardim. I don't know. There's a lot of Sephardim. A lot of Sephardim. Who knows, right? So who knows? I don't know if you could just say such a blatant statement that we don't cook on hot plates. Who knows? I don't know, right? And Rav Moshe says that if it doesn't cook, it's mashma, that if it's a hot plate that could cook, even if you don't cook, Rav Moshe sounded like he's machmer, not like the art school book. So I would, let's put it like this. Shviger, right? If your Shviger read the art scroll book and she takes Kallus straight out of the fridge and puts it straight onto the hot plate, I don't know if you have to start objecting and things like that, because you have the night to be Huda anyways. Who says that you're allowed to take baked products straight out of the fridge and put them on, because it's not normal. And you have this tzad, which even I'll admit, there is a tzad to say a hot plate is not a normal way to bake, right? But one thing is bar. If you take an upside down pan and put it on a hot plate, then that for sure is okay, right? Why? Because Derech Agav, Rabbi Isai, the Mishnah Berurah says you need to be soisim the kira. It's not enough to just have not derech levashel. Maybe this is right, not like the art scroll and Rabbi Vaja. I don't care that it's not derech levashel. Okay, it is a fire. It's not like a radiator, which is some other chefs. It's not even a fire, a radiator, right? What's a radiator? A radiator is like a hot oil or I don't know, some hot water, But here it's fire. We all agree that a hot plate is fire, and it's a boiling hot fire. It's definitely a fire. We agree it's fire. So you want to say, but it's not a fire that people cook on. Okay, but the Mishnah Berurah said that's not enough. The Mishnah Berurah said that's not enough when he explained the chilik between Sif Gimel and Sif Hey. He said it's not enough to just say that I have a fire that's not the derech to cook on. Sif Gimel also was a fire that's not the derech to cook on. And the Mishnah Berurah said, then you still need Tznai Chazara. So he said, it has to be mufsak umuvdal. So if you want to take an upside down pot and put it on a hot plate, no, that I could hear. Manashach is mutter. According to Rav Vosner, it's anyways mutter. And even the art scroll will be makel, even though he doesn't like upside down pots, but he likes hot plates anyways. So upon him, that for sure is that you can take an upside down pot and put it on top of a hot plate, or an upside down pot and put it on a blech. And if you want to be super from, you take an upside down pot and put it on the blech, not right over the fire. Is this crystal clear? If your shviger does it and she puts it straight onto the hot plate, do you have to object? The answer is no. Why? Why don't you have to object? Because the Neiv Yehuda. Right? So you don't have to object because she has the Neiv Yehuda. If you the Neiv Yehuda anyways, it's a baked product, and baked products is okay to put onto the. So you don't have to object. But the Sephardim cook on it. So I don't know why wasn't anybody have a right to say. I don't know. Sorry. That's also yesh ladin. Like, how does that work? A lot of people will put food on the hot plate when it's 90% cooked, and then it gets to 100% cooked. So you do cook on the hot plate. Okay. If that's the koveya, you can understand two tzaddim, but it's definitely a tzad. Now, this is Rabbi Isai, and there are others that say this. I mean, this is it certainly is the derech to make liquid foods, going in Rabbi Lieberman's concept, right? It's certainly the derech to make liquid soups, like a chicken soup or something, into gatz lettuce. Ani mamen ben muna shleima that yesh b'shalach b'shal b'davar. Right, so according to the Mishnah Berurah, and therefore it does cook foods. So I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. So to do it lechatchila chalila, that's about it. And it's also not the mini Kallus Yisrael. I don't think people take things straight out of the fridge and put them on hot plates. I don't think that's not. Now the one thing is what about these warming drawers? So it's usually not in the gag, because what I keep on seeing from the warming drawers, they have two dials, right? And also they have all these other problems, like when you open it up and they have sensors that go on and secretations that go on and all types of weird things. What? Who? Interesting. I mean, the only thing is that a warming draw is much better copy the shot that we're talking about, right? Because the warming draw is zikr there. No one cooked ever in a warming draw. You never put a cholent there over. You lost my svardim, right? You lost my extra 10% to bishul. You lost my liquid. Nobody in the world uses these things except the warm. What do you say, Rabbi? What's not kamina? No, I'm saying so. It's mizan again. Oh, it's mizan again. It's ilchatchila. The whole shayla up in ilchatchila is saying it's not sanagaya. Sure, it is. What do you mean? I want to have like hot cakes or something for dessert. So you want to put it into the warming trough for dessert. How long is your Friday night meal? 12 hours? Hasidic tish? What are you doing over there? What? What are you mad? You're going to put it in before and it's going to get burnt and everything. What? So I won't. I don't have one. Okay. But anyway, it has knobs, a lot of them. Anyway, so you have shemichatas and stuff. And so that's now. By the way, in the crock pot, you take out the cholent pot, and now for shal shudis, it's a great eitzah. You want to take your challah. Let's say you're a person that doesn't have a hot plate for Shabbos. Why would a person have a hot plate? Because he put on the food in the oven on Friday night, and then he had his crock pot for lunch. That was his lunch, and that's his hot food, and therefore he's not at Stuki. And then now he wants to put challah and make the challah hot. So till now, how did he make the challah hot? It was great. He put it on top of the cholent pot, right? But now the cholent pot was taken out. So now where are you going to put the challah to make it hot? So he'll take a silver pan or whatever, a bekel, a disposable pan, and he'll put it inside the heating element, right? So what's this? Could you do this? Right? So I did it today. It depends on your crock pot. Depends. If you have a very big crock pot, we might have to go and help them, right? But if you have a very big crock pot, so then it's not going to work, right? Think about it. Everybody say, let's say you have silver foil in your crock pot. So you have one blech in your crock pot, okay? And now you have an upside down pan. So that's for Vosner. You have, what do you have, everybody? So you have, what? Come again? No, you have a blech. And now you have a pan on your blech. But right? That's what you're doing. You have a blech, and now you have, again, the regular silver foil inside is a blech number one. And then you have a pan, an upside down, a bekel, whatever. And then you put the challah in there. So it depends. My crock pot, I have two crock pots. One is when the boys come home, right? And then it's a big one. And then we have a small one. The small one, that's what we have out now because the boys are in yeshiva. So we have the small one. I put the pan inside. You really, then it's okay. Because then basically the pan is basically kimat the same size as the pot, generally, and then the challah will go onto that, which is basically sticking out. So you're on a pan, on a blech. So then you're a Vosner, right? If you have one of these big crock pots, so then it's not really going to work because then you have on the side, you didn't do anything to the side, and the heating elements are on the sides. You really didn't do anything, right? So you don't have a right to do that. That's mamish and the straight onto a blech, right? What? You have one. So that's one blech. That's like taking something going straight onto the blech. It's something a person wouldn't realize, right? That's why I mentioned again. Nobody would realize it, right? What do you want to do? Give an eitzah. Oh, so the eitzah is you could what? But it never's touching. It doesn't matter. Why not? When you take something and you put it on your fire, it's touching. The pot doesn't touch, right? Let's say there's a space between the fire and the pot. That's it. It's mutter chalila. Of course not. You have to cover your fire. So here you have one cover on your fire, which is the blech. But then now you have to have a separate cover. No, think about it. It's like a blech on the side. It's like a blech in the air. Understand? But think about it. If can a person take a challah and put it, hang it in the air? It's an interesting case, but could you take a challah, hang it in the air? I don't think so. Wait, Rabbi, I have another eitzah. Is that what you're about to say? Rabbi Adler, you about to say the eitzah? What? So now like this. So now to take it and hang the challah on the heating element straight like that, I don't like that. That's the actual fire, right? That's no good, right? But you could do some shtick, right? What could you do? You could take, for sure you could take the pan. I did it today on my crock pot, so I see it works. But you could take a pan and then just turn it this way, right? This is the pot or whatever, the heating element, whatever, right? And now you turn the pan, the rectangular, perpendicular or whatever, place that way, onto the veg, And then you put the challah on that. Now, you're okay, because it's a fablech the fire, and you have a pot, you have Ravosner. Right? I'm saying there's eitzes. I'm just saying there's a shtickle eitzah to do this, right? But if it's a eitzah, yeah.
Put a regular, you put down a pan on top of your upside down pan the other way. So then you have
A pan.
all on the sides, because the side of the pan.
That's what I just said, or no? What is he doing?
No, it's you put it right side up. Put a pan right side up on top of the other pan. On top of your upside down pan, you put a right side up pan.
Put another pan.
Yeah.
Wait, you put one pan upside down, and then put another pan.
Right side up.
No, because I don't know if that's a blech. It's like a double piece of metal. It's like the challah in a pot. Yeah, what'd you gain? It's like the challah in a pan. It's like a piece of challah. It's like a challah in a pan. I don't know. It's not a blech, but it's not enough. I can't have two blechs. I need a blech and a hefsek. So he died. He's making two blechs. I'm not chapping. It's during a shiur. Maybe that's why I'm not chapping. But if you get it, you get it. I need a blech and a hefsek. That's what I need. Right? That's what I need. Now, okay, no, we're good. Rabbi said it's good. No, it's good. Now, Rabbi say it's to say. Rabbi say. So let me tell you. Should I make a sikum? I never make sikum. Should I make a sikum? Let me tell you. I have 7 cases that nesina l'chatchila that we could do nesina l'chatchila. No, help me out. When can I do nesina l'chatchila? That's what this sugya is, right? Shiur chazar. Now we're up to nesina l'chatchila. Give me 7 cases that I could do nesina l'chatchila. Nesina l'chatchila meaning I could take something straight out of the fridge or whatever and put it on to near the fire. Give me cases. What? Go back all the way. Go back all the way. The first case that we ever saw of ever. Shin Yud Ches Sif Tezvav. Shin Yud Ches Tezvav. It says you could take a food and put it near a fire, near the Madura. Okay. Does anybody have a case that this is Nageya? Okay. Anybody? Anybody was the case? Nageya? No. Probably not. What? Well, we didn't get to the blach yet. We'll get to the. I mean, we'll get to the blach. That'll be a case. What? Well, let's see. Let me say the sikum first, and then let's do it like that. The first case is shin yuches tezvav. That's my first. You're allowed to take something and put it near a fire. It's not a derech bishul, and you're not close enough to the fire. I guess you're not going to stoke the fire, but that's mutter. That's mutter. You want to take an apple. But wait a minute. We have to make sure that we don't have gzeres hefsher over here. We have to make sure we also can't have gzeres hefsher, right? So it's got to be a previously cooked case. So it can't be my case of an apple like I was about to say. So it's got to be like a potato kugel or schnitzel or something that you're putting near your fireplace. Very normal case. Okay, let's go weiter. Okay, number 1. Case number 2 is kli rishon. Kli rishon, that's a case of where you could do nesina l'chatchila. You could do nesina l'chatchila of a previously cooked item and put it into a kli rishon. Siman shin yuchesiv dalet. Not bad, huh? That's a good one. Nobody remember that one. Come on, that was like from years ago. That's before Corona, no? Shin yuchesiv dalet. What case am I putting ever into a kli rishon? Anybody have a case? Knedlach. You're allowed to take knedlach, previously cooked knedlach. Oh, I guess they won't be wet or whatever. You take previously cooked knedlach, and you want to put them straight into your chicken soup, your kli rishon. That's nesina l'chatchila. The Mishnah calls that nesina l'chatchila because remember, you're putting it into a source which cooks. Case number 2. Case number 3 is a blech in the area which is not yad lettuce by. That's the goyin Rav Moshe says first. The reason I need to quote Rav Moshe, even though it's a Mishnah Berurah and a Ramah, is because Rav Elyashiv argues, meaning the concept of putting something to a place where it's not yad, where it won't make the food get to yad lettuce by. Heed my words, Rabbi Feiner, where it won't make the food get to yad lettuce by. So if you put something into a place where the food won't get to yad lettuce by, even though it's on the black, Rav Moshe says it's mutter. Mishnah Berurah and Ramah seem to concur. The reason I have to quote the names Rav Moshe is because Rav Elyashiv in the Shvus Yitzchak, they bring down on page 74. I mentioned this. He said, there's a light plug anywhere on the blech. Don't get involved anywhere on the blech. The blech is a scary place. Don't do anything on the blech because you're going to make mistakes on the blech. But that's a chumrah, Rabbi say. It's a chumrah that, I'm not saying this in a zilzal, but it's a chumrah without a makor. I mean, anybody learning the sugya would for sure on his own, without having the koyach of Elyashiv, whose yard side is today in the Chab Moira, right? But Rav Elyashiv had the koyach to make light plugs, right? But the rest of us don't. And therefore the pashtus is that if you would read Shulchan Aruch and you would take a challah, so this is a very interesting case. Can I take a challah and put it straight onto the hot plate? The answer is no. Can I take a challah and put it onto the blech on the part which is yad soledis by, but it can't make the food yad soledis by? The answer is l'chayra, yes. Okay, that's another case of nesina l'chatchila. Good. Boss? Excuse me, not sure if that's even called smicha because it's, I don't know. Smicha means, it sounds like in the paiskim you have to be mamish. the wall of the fire on the other side in Gechalim. That's why it would be a little bit different than Smicha. A little bit different. Radiate, I'm sorry? I think so. Rabbi Lieberman's asking me, what if the bottom of the challah is going to get yatsa lettuce by? Something you have to ask you. I'm not taking responsibility on that one. Radiator, Ramosha Dalad Ayin Dalad Lamed Dalad. What number am I up to? 4 or 5? Rabbi Cooper? That was 4. Dalad Ayin Dalad Lamed Dalad. Ramosha says radiator is mutter. That's a weird thing. Not a normal way of cooking. And you're allowed to put things straight onto a radiator, obviously assuming that there's no real bishul problems, only fake. What? Even Bachrim Dira, there's a reason we have to say Bachrim Dira, you know what I mean? Like, if your mamish cooks there, he's got like an iron, which is milchix, an iron, which is fleishix, he's got a radiator, which is treif, right? Chametz. Urn, kipchutai, Rabbi Khan, are you allowed to take a challah and put it straight on top of the urn? Based on everything that you heard today, Bein according to Chazon Ish, should be mutter gomer, right? Take a challah, put it straight onto the urn, mutter gomer, right? Potato kugel straight onto the urn, mutter gomer. Rabbi Yashiv said it's aser. Again, Rabbi Yashiv was a great man, Rabbi say. In the last 20 years, he was, the undisputed champion of the world. It's pretty big, right? And the years before, he was disputed, but he was still, it was big, right? But Al Kapanim in the end, it was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Rabbi said. So Lamaisa, he said you can't put it on an urn. He said it's chalik, the case of an urn, and the case of a challah pot. Who could tell me the chilek? I don't have alcohol to give out today. No? Who could give me the chilek? What's the chilek? Oh, thank you, Rabbi Shah. He's mamish Torah l'shma. He knows he's not even getting alcohol for that. He says Rabbi Yashiv, the shah is why is that chilek mechalik? That's your next job. But so he says, Rabbi Yashiv says that the pshat is when you have a challah pot, so you have fire, you have pot, and then that didn't sound good. You have fire, right? You have the pot, right? And then on top of the pot, you have the challah. So the challah is getting heated up from either like a Chazon Ish, from the food, right? Or the other lumdis, it's mufsuk from the kira. It's no shaykhs to the kira, it's like muvdal and mufresh from the kira. It's not just there to say it's in the kira. But they actually said, if you have the fire and the food in the same chefza, that's not how a crack pot is, right? A crack pot is you have the heating element, then the pot, then the food, right? Then your challah. Here, you have it all in one chefza. So now it's all one chefza. So he says, so maybe that's like taking it and putting it just like, you're putting it straight onto the fire. You're putting it straight onto the fire. Maybe it's like submerging, like Rav Shlomo Zalman Suffolk, of putting something into the pot. That's what Rabbi Yasha said. It's definitely a chiddush. It's definitely a chiddush, right? Did I explain it correctly? That's the chiddush. That's the chiddush. The chiddush. Okay. It's a chiddush. I think the Welt is mekel. The Welt is mekel. Another case of nesina lichatchila. Was? On Rabbi Yashiv's yahrzeit week, for sure you shouldn't do it. But he's saying if you have 2 options, so why should you get involved? So what should you do instead? You'll do the next date. So you'll take an upside down pan, you'll put it on a hot plate. That for sure is okay. Or you'll take an upside down pan and put it on a blech. That's for sure okay. And if you want to be firm, we put it on the side of the blech, like we explained before. In the makim, even that's yatzaledes by loimavai and the yatzaledes by you can put it straight onto the blech. And there's 3 parts of a blech kindalach. There's the fire, there's the yatzaledes by, and then there's the eina yatzaledes by. The meaning they can't get the food. Rav Moshe told us. It's very important to remember this. We spoke this out, but it's very important to remember this. Rav Moshe told us on Erev Shabbos, you mamish have to be careful. Rav Moshe told us that the yatzaledes part of the blech, the part that gets the food to yatzaledes by, is the same as the fire. And you could indiscriminately go back and forth. That's what Rav Moshe taught us, and that's the psak halacha. Again, I saw the Orlat Tzin is not like this, but this is the psak halacha. In Dalet Samach Aleph, Rav Moshe told us the part that makes the food get the yatzaledes by, and the part which is the fire, indiscriminately you go back and forth. That's all one big fire. And therefore, if you started out on Erev Shabbos on the part which is yatzaledes by, but not the fire, you can move it over on Shabbos. You can move it off. You can move it on. The one thing you do have to be very careful about, we spoke out, is if you're going to start on Erev Shabbos with the food on the part, which is not yatzaledes by, so then you needed all of our shtiklach Torah, because how could you go from a part which is not yatzaledes by to a part which is yatzaledes by? That's mamish tamua. It's tamua ma'id, right? On Erev Shabbos, you put it there. On Shabbos, you can put it there. So then that's called off the blech. So that you have to just be aware of. We spoke this out, but one must be aware of this idea. So that's another case. And then there's the Chzainish in Lamed Zayin Chaf Aleph. The Chzainish, he tells us that if you have a Shabbos clock, could you do Nesina L'Chatchila on a Shabbos clock? In other words, what'll be the case? What'll be the case? Let's say you hold that you, like us, that you can't put the hot plate, you can't put food straight onto a hot plate. So could I take the challah, put it onto the hot plate, and then with the Shabbos clock, it'll go on an hour later, half an hour later, 10 minutes later, whatever it is, something like that, right? What is it? So this is no good. This l'chayr is no good. This l'chayr is no good. This raya is in the siman that you can't do things that are going to occur after. Much like, can I take food and put it to a place of where it's going to get cooked after? There's a raya from the sim. That's cooking, though. Here is chazara. You don't have a raya to this. I don't think. Does anybody have a raya to this? Can I take food, challah, put it on a hot plate, and the hot plate will go on in a half an hour? Okay, there's no real bishul. It's only a shayla of nesim l'chatchila. So when I put it on, it wasn't. Well, no. It's a previously baked product. No. What? Real bishul chas v'chalila to be made. That's what Shiur says first. You certainly can't take a chicken soup and put it on and then in a half an. No, that was Erev Shabbos. That was Erev Shabbos. You put the stuff on Erev Shabbos. I'm talking where you're putting it on Shabbos. Shabbos morning, I take l'mashal, to take a cholent Shabbos morning, put it on a hot plate, a wet cholent, put it on a hot plate, and then the hot plate goes on in 10 minutes or whatever, and then it cooks until you come back from shul. That's an Isser Gomer. Shiur brings that case. That's an Isser Gomer. He doesn't bring from a Shabbos clock. He brings from a goy or whatever, right? But that's an Isser Gomer. You can't put something into a place. We're clearing a case of where you're putting something into a place of where it's going to get heated up. It'll be like a creation of an Nesina Chatchila. There's no real riot to this. There's no real riot to this. You can't do it. We just said you cannot do it.
Why not? The child's boiling how you put it there. You know it's going to go on in 5 minutes.
Now you're putting it on the. First of all, I was talking about a case where you're taking a cholent out of a fridge. In that case, it's also and probably the rice. You're causing that. But you want to know: can I take a cholent out of one? It's a weird case, right? But if I take a cholent out of a fire, put it onto a hot plate. So is that called karka? Is it called yadai? Whatever you get, it gets involved in complicated. But it's not such a normal case. I don't have to don it. But I was talking about the mamish cooking the cholent. Mamish cooking the cholent. That for sure is us, right? But there, we're not even clearing that. We're clearing, let's say, a potato kugel. There's no real bishul. Can I take potato kugel, put it onto a hot plate that's going to go on in 10 minutes? That I don't have mefurish it's usher. He's talking about real cooking there. Does he talk about the case of where it's a potato cook? He doesn't talk about it. He says it's usher, and he's talking about real cooking, like a chicken soup or something like that. I'm clearing what'll be on a potato cook. I'm talking about whatever. I couldn't find it in first, this case. Chazanish and Lamed Zayin Chaf Aleph doesn't like it, but I don't know. One more thing here. I don't know. If you want further, if anybody wants further literature, you could look in the Tzitz Eliezer in, what does it say here? In the 12th volume, in Siman Tes maybe. He has all different things about it. People have minhagim that they take food and on Erev Shabbos, you saw this, he puts things like all over the blech, and they put things on top of, they put things on top of the cholent pots, and then they put it down onto the blech, but not the way we said. That, you came straight from a fire, and he wants to explain all types of chedushin gedolim, that because he says it's hot, it's all types of weird things. And Evan Yisrael, Dayan Fisher, he says even bigger chedushin in chelik ches, and in what did I write here? Hey, you test. He says, you know what you could do? You ready for this? I'm Yankov. You ready for this? You could take a challah, put it onto the cholent on Shabbos, and then on Shabbos, it's hot now. Now it's hot. Now it's hot. Now put her on the hot plate. He says, how come nobody said this except for me? That's what they asked him. That's a pella. It's mamish mefurish neged the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says this is you're allowed to do l'chatchila. So, the only thing the Shulchan Aruch says is you can put it on top of the cholent pot, but then to go and put it down onto the fire. He says, yeah. What? You have this is what he writes. You have a kasha that a gadol says. This is what he writes. You have a kasha that a gadol says something, and you want to know how come nobody said it before? They're like, there's a kasha. There's a makam inichel in shemayim, but a kasha that the poskim have to talk out every case. So same Yisrael Yankov, they once asked him at a bris, I allowed a name after a gadol that's alive. And he was the sandik. So I said, yeah. And the Karish might be Yisrael Yankov. And they called the baby Yisrael Yankov. He allowed a name after a gadol that's alive. All right? So that's it. That's what he said. He was a great man. There's no question. but akapanim is chiddush is zicher lalacha nisht zicher la mekubal. But that's what he says. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It sounds very very extreme. What? He's a grace of guy. He was a grace of guy. He's a grace of guy. Now, basically, tomorrow we're starting in Mitzvah Shem Atmana. We're basically done with Chazar. Right? I should mention two things, which are just side ideas. That there are two other places where we have the Isser of Shehiyah, which is not two other, by Rechitza, by a mikvah. By a mikvah also, we're afraid the person is going to be sehitzt, and therefore the water in the mikvah has to be cooked up to Michael ben Drusai. You know where it's Negea? You know where it's Negea? What? The boiler. Right, but there's no shiyachata because it's one setting maybe, right? But in the mikvah, it's a bunch of settings. It's mamish a bunch of different settings. So sometimes in the morning, the mikvah, the Shon Shabbat, the clock goes on and the taka heats up the water. So what's the heta there? What's that over there? In the mikvah, anyways, you probably shouldn't go into hot water in the mikvah anyway. Okay, that's a hundred shmuz. But what about the pshat that l'chayra? There's a gzeiras shehiyah. And there's a gzeira of shehiyah. There's a gzeira. You're going to come to be mechata. That's why Chazal asked for hot water in general, because they didn't come to stoke the coals. And over there, the water could be not even Michael ben Drusai. Sometimes it just gets heated up in the morning. Right? So there's a tzitz Eliezer. Is a nice idea for the item in Yud Beis. What I write here? Maybe Yud Beis Lamed Aleph. I'm not sure what I wrote here. Where the tzitz Eliezer says. That's why I found this other tzitz Eliezer also. I saw it before. I'm saying, but that's why I remember to say the tzitz Eliezer. He says, Toch b'teh. He says, where's the room with the switches and everything? It's like in a whole different place. It's a Ganza Andra place and it's a whole different place. He said that's called Toch b'teh. In order to change the settings in the mikveh. The truth is, I asked the mikveh guy today. He told me it's like no shaykhis. The mikveh is always hot. There's no such thing. It doesn't go on in the middle of Shabbat. This case that they talk about doesn't really exist. He says not the pshat that the mikveh is cold. And then Shabbos, 4 in the morning, it goes on. There's no such thing. That's that. But there's one case where there's l'chayra not a gzeira shia. Should I tell you where? By radiator. Who said that? By radiator. By radiator, by Reish and Hay, the place can say that when it comes to heat, even though the heat source is water, okay? The heat source is water. The Gemara never talks about this. The Shulchan Aruch never talks about it. The Shulchan Aruch and Reish and Hay discusses that when I want to turn on a heat, do I have to make sure that it's already hot by the time? So that they say, no. Once it already starts the fire, you don't have to worry. Even though people are nervous, they're going to be cold. So, but I saw that the Paiskim, Rav Elyashiv, Rav Shlomo Zalman, in the 148th page in Shvitz Yitzchak, they bring down, even though the heat which is heating you up is radiator, which is water heat, you don't have to make sure it's Michael ben Drusai. If you turn on your heating right before Shabbos, that's okay. Even if there's different settings. Because we don't have the Gzeira, it's going to be Sehitz, which is interesting. Why? And for further literature, you could look in the Shevet Levi and Test Nun Aleph and the Minchas Yitzchak in Beis Nun Beis, who disagrees with this. And they're not sure why. I'm not sure why he disagrees with this. I'm not sure why. So we are officially finished with Chazar. There's one more case. Someone told me yesterday. Who was it? Rabbi Lieberman, I think. Someone told me yesterday. A crack pot is another good example of Chazar Erev Shabbos. Of that chumrah, why you have a blech on the crack pot. Because think about it. If you turn on the crack pot, even if the food is fully cooked, if it's not fully cooked, you won't have the chumrah, right? But even if the food is fully cooked, a lot of people do that. Right before Shabbos, they plug it in, right? It takes 20, 30 minutes for it to get hot. It's a good case. That's Chazar Erev Shabbos. And as Elamai, we have the Eitzah, turn it to high, but even then it doesn't always, that's a good case of a Chazar Erev Shabbos, right? Okay, so I told everyone we're going to start at Mana, so I don't want to be, me, I'm always true to my word, right? So Reish and Zayin, Dine Hatmanas Chamin, Uboy Ches Seifim. Okay, that's Hashem. So we have Ches Seifim in how many days? 6 working days. So you guys better work. There's no games. We're doing Gatmanan. There's no games here. There's no Soizman in this place. There's no Tchilas, so there's no Soizman.